Tonight we are moving along week number 8 of our series in our spiritual disciplines. So we're covering discipline number 6. Sir? No fancy words tonight, just a ton of blanks, and that's like a very complicated roadmap, so I hope it makes sense. I needed a bigger board, but it's okay. No complicated words. Our word for the night is stewardship. So maybe that's complicated. Maybe it's just complicated to hear. I don't know. We're going to walk through stewardship tonight, and I promise you that I did not plan it this way, but we're also talking about it on Sunday morning as well in our last core value of our church. So for whatever that's worth, we're going to hit it tonight and next and this coming Sunday. So if you're here tonight, you're going to have to hear it again. Not this exact talk Sunday, but anyway, we're going to hit stewardship again on Sunday. But let's start with prayer, and we will jump in. So God, thank you for tonight, and thank you for our time together. I pray that you would bless our time of study, that you would use this to draw us closer to you and closer to each other, Lord. As we talk through the area of stewardship in our lives, I just pray that you would use it for your glory and challenge us in the areas that we need challenged, Lord. Help us to hear the things that you want us to hear tonight, and we just give this to you. Thank you so much, Lord, for each one that's here. And we know there are some that are not with us tonight for various reasons. I just pray for whatever they may be, if you just be with them, Lord, and guide them tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. All right. A lot to cover, so let's just jump right in. Let's hit the ground running. If you have your Bibles, we will all go to Matthew 25 together. I will actually read that first portion of Scripture this evening as we get started. Matthew 25, and we are going to look at this passage to tie it into stewardship. Now, generally, when you hear the word stewardship, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Money, right? Money, that's the first thing. And so you hear the word and you're automatically like, oh, this is tense. I don't like this. This is awkward. But stewardship, it deals with more than money. Matter of fact, I just like to kind of use the 3 T's of stewardship: and time, talents, and treasure. So many times we just focus on the treasure portion, but it's really the time and the talents. Tonight we're going to cover time and treasure. Last week we talked about the serving side of that, and so that's kind of the talent side of the stewardship, if you will, and using your gifts and the things that God's given you and the talents He's given you. But that's how I like to think about it all the time: time, talents, and treasure. That's a whole umbrella. All that falls under the umbrella of stewardship. But also in the area of stewardship, as most people kind of immediately go towards money, it becomes a very delicate topic because we've all heard the horror stories, right? Especially in the church, and the mishandling of things, and so people kind of get nervous. There's a lot of abuse and mishandling when it comes to the topic of stewardship, even in the church. As a matter of fact, I was reading a story just yesterday, a news article on Facebook of a pastor in Alabama who had basically stolen like the tune of like $400,000 from his church over like a 7-year period, was buying cars and paying off credit card debt and all kinds of this stuff that he was doing. He got caught in it, and he will now spend a 20-year sentence in prison for that, and he also was doing some lying on his tax returns, all that kind of fun stuff. But it's like, it's a pastor. It's in the headlines. It's just one of those things that just makes your skin crawl. I knew the church that Megan and I got married at, the pastor at that church, who we actually met with and talked. He didn't do our wedding, but we met with him to use the facility, all that kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't much longer after we had our wedding that it came out that he was stealing money from his church, like over $100,000. I mean, it's just, you hear those horror stories. You see things on TV where there's these health and wealth prosperity false gospel narratives, by the way, these TV preachers and things, where it's like, hey, if you sow into this ministry and you give $25 right now, God's going to bless you, and God's going to you'll go home and there's a new Corvette in your driveway. And it's like, no. Don't buy the lie, sir. They'll throw you some holy water. They'll sell you this hanky. This is a blessed hanky. It's like they have all these crazy things. And so you see those things. Now, obviously, one bad apple doesn't taint the whole bunch. We do the same thing. People use it in every area of life. Not all TV preachers are bad. Don't think that if you see one, they'll turn it off. But there's some that just, they have this health and wealth. God, you give, and God wants you to be rich. He's going to take care of you, and all this kind of thing. That's all false narratives, false gospels. So we just need to be guarded against that. Now, what Whitney says in the book And what we know to be true through scriptures is that if you do give to God, when you give of yourself, whether your time, talents, and treasures, once again, not just the treasures, but time, talents, and treasures, when you give of yourself through stewardship, God takes care of you. God provides. God shows up. And it doesn't mean that you're going to, if I give $10 today, I'm going to win the lottery tomorrow. It's not that kind of thing. Or if I do this, I'm going to, but he takes care of us. And so that's kind of the overarching theme when it comes to stewardship. When you think about the scriptures, Jesus even said, listen, he talked about disciples coming to follow him. He says, listen, I don't even have a place to lay my head. So if you're going to come with me, you're going to forsake everything and you're going to go on this journey. But we're going to know that along the way, we're going to be provided for. And so that's kind of the big picture. But all the abuse, all the mishandling, we have to understand that is there, and let's be guarded against that. But let's look tonight at what the Bible says when it comes to the area of stewardship. Jesus talks pretty plainly about it in Matthew 25. So let's jump in right here. This is the parable of the talents. And so I'll read this. Let's go through this together. Chapter 25, starting in verse 14. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them and made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time, the master of the servants came and settled accounts with them. Of course, in this parable, by the way, who's the master? The Lord, right? The Lord is the master. We are the servants, so just keeping that in mind. One day, it says here, one day the master is going to return to settle the accounts with his children. He will return and say, how did you do in the area of stewardship? I gave you these things. What did you do? It says here, the master returns to settle his accounts. Verse 20. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered me 5 talents. Here, I've made you 5 talents more. His master says to him, look at this, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much and enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents. Here, I made you 2 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, and I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Verse 24, he also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed, so I was afraid. And I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But the master answered him, you wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I would reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was mine, my own, with interest. At least invest it, right? That's what he says here. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10, for to him who has more will be given, and he will have the abundance. But for the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And he cast the worthless servant into outer darkness, in the place where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, this is a parable Jesus uses to talk about this subject of stewardship. And once again, there's this whole false narrative gospel, prosperity, health, and wealth kind of thing. We need to guard ourselves, even in this, how we approach this text. Because you could read this and go, okay, you've got 2 who went and multiplied, and 1 who came back and didn't. And the 2 that were multiplied, he says, enter into the joy of your master. Like, come on in. You've got the 1 who didn't, and he says, I'm throwing you into outer darkness. So people can use this, and they can say, listen, if you don't give, then you're not saved, that kind of thing. Listen, that is not what the text is saying here. Do not take that as, if I'm not stewarding my resources well, then there goes my salvation. That's not what this is about. There are obviously some parallels here with our hearts and our minds and all that kind of stuff. But the proper way, this is not a salvation text. This is a heart text. This is a text that really checks in our heart based on the area of stewardship. And Jesus is basically telling his disciples, the things that I give you, I expect you to use them for the kingdom. I expect you to use them in a way that will honor God. He's not saying, if you're not a good steward, I'm going to send you to hell. He's just saying, steward your resources well. Steward the things I give you well. Steward your time, your talent, and your treasures in a correct way. So that's kind of the bottom line of this whole parable. And really, as he talks about stewardship. How we use the things that God gives us, time, talent, and treasures, it's a reflection of our heart. So this is why, and once again, this is why it's a discipline. It's tough. It's hard. It's challenging. It's a heart issue, and we're all wired. We're not naturally wired to be just generous and givers. I mean, that's something that God has to do in and through us. And so this is why it's a discipline and why it's a challenge. And so once again, we often jump into money thinking about the stewardship, but let's start tonight with the first T that we're going to talk about, and that is how we use our time. How we use our time. I told you we talked about talents last week, so we're not going to cover the talents, but we're going to talk about our disciplined use of our time. Ephesians 5, 15 and 16. Who has that one for us? Bobby?
5, 15, and 16. Pay careful attention then to how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil.
So there it is, right there. This is Paul writing here, and it's basically telling us, hey, how you use your time matters. Be careful with how you use your time. He uses this word. I don't. If your translation said it, but does it say how you walk? Be careful then how you walk.
No, mine just says how you
live. Okay, live. Yeah. So that's what that means. Some versions, like mine, says to walk, and that word walk, it basically means the way in which one goes, or to live. Be careful then how you live. The idea there, once again, is use your time in a correct manner, and it says. That not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of your time. Live as a wise person. The King James Version. Does anybody have King James with you? No? Okay, so King James says in verse 16, when it says making the best use of your time, it actually says redeeming the time. Redeeming the time that's in front of you. That basically means that was Paul when Paul was writing that. It was this use of like this accounting term. Essentially, it means to buy back the time that you've been given. I was thinking about that this week. Anybody taking your kids to like Chuck E. Cheese or grandkids or anything like that? You've seen, you know what I'm talking about, right? You go to Chuck E. Cheese, and this is the most conning thing they can do, right? Because you go there and you put a $20 bill in the machine and it spits out these tokens, and your kid's like, yeah, and you give them these things, and they go win like 8 tickets, right? And you go to the counter with your 8 tickets, and they're like, all right, kids, what do you want to get? Like, I guess all we can afford is like 2 Tootsie Rolls, right? So then you get 2 Tootsie Rolls, and you walk out, and you're like, we paid $20 for 2 Tootsie Rolls, right? But the kids had fun, you made a memory, whatever, but you kind of feel like, man, I got ripped off, right? But it's this mindset of like buying it back, redeeming, and using the time that we have and redeeming the things that God's given us. And so we have to be disciplined in how we use our time. So the first thing, the first letter, now this is a weird roadmap here, so stay with me, okay? But the first big letter A under number 1 is to use your time wisely. To use your time wisely. And he says in the book, and this is coming from the book this evening, obviously, but to use your time wisely, there says there's 4 things, there's 4 areas that we need to really understand if we're going to use our time wisely. First of all, small letter A, now track with me, these are all under the big A, okay? But we're going to use our time to prepare for eternity. We're going to be having a stewardship mindset of how we use our time, as we're going to use our time wisely, and we're going to do so by preparing ourselves for eternity. Now think about how your normal day breaks down, right? Just the normal flow of your day. You wake up and you begin your day, and you have certain routines and certain things you do, but how many times would you think through a whole 24-hour period of one day, you think about how often the things that we do in our lives on a daily basis, they're not preparing us for eternity. They're very much earthly-minded things, right? I mean, just think about it. The things that we do, and that's okay. I mean, it's part of life, but just not saying that like every second of every day you're thinking about eternity and everything you do, and it's like you're so heavenly-minded, you're no earthly good. That's not what it's talking about. But use your time to begin to prepare for eternity and the things that you do. Who's got 2 Corinthians 6:2? Okay, would you read that for us?
For he says, at an acceptable time I listened to you, and in the day of salvation I helped you. See, now is the acceptable time, now is the day of salvation.
So Paul's saying here, now is the day. This is the time. Now is the time to prepare for eternity. You don't prepare for eternity once you pass away. You prepare for it now. Today is the day. So we understand that if we're going to, part of using our time wisely is that we have this mindset of, what am I doing today that is going to matter in 100 years? Right? What's going to matter in 100 years, 200 years? When I'm long and gone, have I used my time today to prepare for eternity? It leads us to letter B. Time is short. Time is short. Thinking about that, when you think about things in just the general frame of life, the more scarce something is, the more valuable it becomes, right? The more scarce it is, whether it's gold, diamonds, Bitcoin, like I don't know, whatever it is, like the more scarce it is, there's only a few now, there's just a few, so you better get in on it, that whole thing. But that also pertains to our time. Time is short, and we think, the whole mindset is, and he says in this book, and it was a really profound line. He says, the reality of thinking that we are never more than one breath away from eternity should cause us to use our time wisely. We don't live our lives oftentimes thinking about, man, I'm one breath away from eternity. Like, it could be like that. Time is short. James 4:14, who's got that one?
I do.
Okay.
Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring, what your life will be, for you are like a vapor that appears for a little while, then it vanishes.
So it's like, man, your life is a vapor. It's like you drive to town in the morning, you see the fog out in the field, and then in just a few minutes, it's gone.
And the older you get, the faster it goes by.
The older it gets, the faster it goes, right? And it's happening very quickly, and that leads us to letter C. That time, not only is it short, but time is also passing. Time is passing. The clock never stops. The clock is always going, and it's fleeting. He uses an analogy in the book. It's really cool when he says time is not like a bag of ice that you go to the convenience store and you buy and you bring home and stick in your freezer and say, I'm using that this weekend for the party. And I'll pull it out when I need it, but I have it, it's saving, it's just, it's kind of on standby. He says time is kind of like, he uses the idea of like the sand in the hourglass, but I just want to take it a little further. I said, for me, I was thinking time is like buying the bag of ice and setting it on the counter because it's just melting away. It's not like you can just pause it and say, let me just shelf that in the freezer for a minute. And it's passing by. It's going by day, continuously slipping away. You're like, man, I came to church not to be encouraged, Pastor. What are you doing here, right? But this is the reality. Time is short and it's passing. Who's got 1 John 2:17?
I do.
All right.
And this world is fading away along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever.
So there it is. I mean, these are just some simple texts that we see that kind of come along and support these. The world is passing away day by day. We're one step closer to eternity. We're one step closer. Time is constantly passing. All right? That leads to letter D, that time is, we're preparing for eternity. It's short, it's passing, but it also is, a time is uncertain. It's uncertain. In other words, no one knows what tomorrow holds. Right? Proverbs 21:7. Is that you again, Abigail?
Yes.
All right.
Don't brag about tomorrow since you don't know what the day will bring.
There you go. That's a simple proverb. Don't boast about tomorrow. Don't brag about it. No one knows what tomorrow holds. Saw this statistic today. I was looking up just thinking about this, but like every single day in the United States, there's 8,470 deaths every day. It's uncertain. Every day, 8,470 people are passing away. And maybe for you, you think, okay, yeah, man, I had recently lost a loved one, a friend, a coworker. I mean, we've got famous people that we know. We see people all the time, and we think about these people who are day by day. No one knows what tomorrow holds. It's uncertain. And so regardless of how long we want to live or we expect to live, the number of our days are held in his hands, and we don't know. It's an uncertain thing. So we understand, we're called to use our time wisely, which leads us to now the big letter B, that time cannot be regained. Time cannot be regained. Right? Got a text message a couple days ago from my mother-in-law. You guys see those things if you have an iPhone, they have those memories that pop up on your phone, like these video montages, and they put the sad emotional music to it. I'm like, I hate that. My mother-in-law sent us a memory in our family text the other day, and it was from 3 years ago when we were moving into the house over here, and just seeing how little the kids were. We were preparing the house to move in, and I was like sitting there like, I was like, oh, my allergies are getting to me again, because it was one of those things where I'm like, look how small they were. Look how little. 3 years, it's gone by just like that. It's one of those things, and it cannot be regained. Like, we can't go back to that. We can't go back to that moment, and it just happens. And so we're called to discipline ourselves in our current time. John 9:4. Who's got that one? All right.
We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. All
right. So yeah, today's the day. We work while we can work. The night is coming. There's going to be a day when we cannot do this any longer. This cannot be regained. And we might even think, and just thinking about that man, some of these years have passed and months have passed, and sometimes people, they grieve what they've lost, right? And maybe even the time wasted, like maybe before you met Christ, and you maybe had some hard moments or whatever, and you're like, I wish I could go back. But here's the thing, and this is the next verse, but thinking about forsaking the past and looking ahead, Philippians 3 through 14. Is that you again, Walter? All right.
No, dear brothers and sisters, I have not achieved it, but I focus on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I press on to reach the end of the race and receive the heavenly prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us.
There you go. That's that challenge. That even if you have those days in the past, those are the past days, and maybe you're grieving those or you're sorrowful. But listen, take advantage of today and use what God's given you right now. That's what this is all about here. In the focus of this moment. So that leads us to letter C, that we will also, we talked about this last week, but we'll also be held accountable. We will be held accountable with our time. Talked last week, this is the whole judgment seat of Christ when in 2 Corinthians 5, when we're going to appear before Christ, and we're going to give an account of the things that we did and how we use things. But now we'll look at it again in Romans 14:12. There it is. There's that accounting. And then Matthew 25, we read it earlier, the parable of the talents. The masters are going to return. What'd you do? What'd you do with the things I gave you? Keeping that in the understanding of using our time. We're going to use it wisely. It cannot be regained. We're held accountable to it. But this next one, and he hits it really well in the book. And think about this, that people always value time at death. And I know that sometimes those are sudden things, but sometimes those are moments where people, they know that they're on their deathbed, right? The days are passing, and maybe they know it's coming. And you think about people who have on their deathbed, now they're all of a sudden, they're recalling life. And sometimes it's man, I regret how I lived my life. There's a couple famous quotes that he actually puts in the book. By famous French infidel Voltaire, he says this. He says to the doctor, I will give you half of what I am worth if you'll give me 6 more months. Like, can't do it. I'll give half of my wealth, but listen, can't do that. Can't add any more time. English skeptic Thomas Hobbes, his last words were this, that if I had the whole world, I would give it to live one more day. If I had the whole world, I would give it all up to live one more day. Once again, that's that moment of in the time of death, recalling what I did or what I didn't do, that whole aspect of stewardship. And so, yeah. What do you mean?
Well, in my husband's accident, things I regret that I hadn't done or said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a sudden, right? It's both sides of that coin for sure. And the principle, and he draws it out, and this specific point is that we realize that we need to come to Christ while we still can, right? We come to Him, and we use that wisely, and we don't wait until that moment when it's no longer available for us. But he says a lot of people in their life, they'll chase the pleasures of life, not realizing the joy of living with the disciplines that God's given us and called us to. So Proverbs 5:11 through 13. Okay.
At the end of your life, you will groan. When your flesh and body are spent, you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction.
So there it is. I mean, just this whole idea of being regretful, thinking through those things. I don't like the discipline, but I know that there's a day when I will be thankful I practiced it. I practiced the things that God's called me to do. Think about the rich man and Lazarus in Luke 16, right? If you know that story. The rich man had everything he ever wanted. Lazarus was just there and trying to get some scraps, and the rich man wouldn't give him anything. And then they both died, and Lazarus goes to heaven, and the rich man goes to hell, and he's in torment. He says, I wish I could just go back. I'd make things right. And he says, listen, you can't. That's done. We'll send somebody to tell my family, and we can't do that. If they won't believe in what they see, then that's just on them. And so this whole thing, I mean, he really presses in, and it's hard to think through that. But the time aspect of our stewardship area is real, and it's big. So that's the first thing. Be disciplined in how you use your time, and think through that. Did I skip it? I thought I put it in here. Hold on 1 second. I thought I had something about minutes in here. Maybe I didn't. Okay, maybe I don't know. All right. Number 2, let's be disciplined, not only in our time, but our treasure. Now we're going to get to the fun stuff. All right, our treasure, Matthew 6, 19 through 21.
Do not lay up yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust can destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
So this is Jesus teaching Sermon on the Mount, and he presses into this whole idea of the treasure, where our heart is, the whole thing of we work so hard to store up things here. The reality is, everything we work for here, it's going to deteriorate, it's going to vanish. It says, don't do that. Don't store up things here. Store up your treasure in heaven. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. I heard this a long time ago, and it's really true that one of the best ways to see where our treasure is, what we truly treasure, is to go look at the checkbook, to go look on the online bank statement, and you'll see quickly what are you treasuring? Where are you putting your treasure? It reveals why, because Jesus says here that where your treasure is, there your heart's going to be, and so that really reveals the nature of our heart. And so it's just a really personal reflection, like, okay, Lord, how am I using my treasure? What are the things I'm doing? Am I glorifying God and honoring Him with my treasure, my finances? And there's a few things that really help us begin to understand when we think about our treasure, and really what is our treasure. And let's see, what's this roadmap going to look like? The first thing to realize is this big letter A, is that God owns it all. I messed that up. God owns it all. God owns all of it, everything. Right? Look at Psalm 24:1. Okay.
All right. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it.
Pretty straightforward. Exodus 19:5. Is that you again? Okay.
Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession, although the whole earth is mine.
The earth is mine. Job 41:11.
Who has a claim against me that I must pay? Everything under heaven belongs to me. So we see 3 scriptures here, 3 verses. This tells us very plainly God owns it all. The thing is that He welcomes us in as stewards, as managers. He gives us the resources, and He says, I own it, but I'm entrusting it to you, just like Matthew 25. I own this. This is part of what I own, but I'm going to entrust this to you. We are managers, and so that's what we think about. We're managers. God owns everything. We own nothing. He owns it all. We are simply His managers. Our possessions, our resources, they all belong to God. Haggai 2:8. Who's got that one? Me.
All right.
The silver is mine and the gold is mine, says the Lord of hosts.
So once again, these are just short scriptures, but they're direct and to the point. How much? The question then. And I heard this question asked a while ago when it comes to the area of thinking about God owning everything. We always ask, well, how much are we supposed to give? And this, what does God want from us? What does God expect from us? But the question really can be flipped around. Not how much should I give, but really the question should be how much should I keep? It's all God's in the first place. So the question is, like, how much of God's resources should I keep? How much of God's resources should I hold on to? And we're going to talk about this. Like I said, this is a preview a little bit for Sunday. We're talking about radical generosity and that whole mindset. But it's a biblical thing when you think about the whole aspect of giving and giving of your resources, of actually giving of God's resources that He's entrusted us with, right? And we'll talk more about that on Sunday and kind of press in there a little bit. But basically, when we give to the Lord's work, when we give back to the Lord, the things that He's already given us, we should give with the belief that all that we have belongs to Him. And our commitment is that we want to use all of what we have as He chooses to lay on our hearts and to lead us and to guide us with. And so we start there. Man, God owns it all. I don't actually own anything. Yeah, the title on the title on the car is mine, my name on it, but it's God's. My house is God's. My bank account is God's. Everything is God's. And it's all because of He's blessed me with it and trusted me with it. So how am I using it? Letter B, thinking about our treasures, is that giving is an act of worship. Giving is an act of worship. Now, just like when you hear the word stewardship, a lot of times you immediately go to money. When you hear the word worship, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, but we automatically go to singing. But worship is a lot broader than that. When we give, it's an act of worship. Paul thanked the Christians in Philippi who supported his missionary journey in Philippians 4:18 when he says, I've received full payment and more. I'm well supplied, having received the gifts that you sent. He says this is a really cool phrase. He says, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. When Paul says that, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God, he's making an Old Testament connection from when they used to go in and they would give these aroma offerings back to the Lord. These aroma incense offerings as a part of their worship. When we give, it's an act of worship. So think about this. Do you think about your giving as an act of worship? Or is it one of those things where God's like prying our fingers off of it? It's like, right? But listen, think about this. When we do the offering on Sunday mornings and we pass a plate, like we do that here in my previous church, but we didn't pass a plate. We had boxes all around the room and people could drop money in the boxes. We have online giving. People can do that way. But when the plate passes every Sunday, that's not just a transitional moment. We're like, okay, we got to get the band off and the preacher up. That's not what that's all about. That's a moment to practice worship. And so in the book, actually, Whitney talks about the fact that he used to, he'd get paid like twice a month. He said, I would give my tithe at the first and the middle of the month. And he said, the more and more I began to think about my worship through giving, he said, I started to just give every week. I split my tithe up so I would give, because he said, I wanted to worship every single service. I wanted to have a moment of worship. And so as that plate would pass, he'd put that in there and he'd know this was a moment of worship. It's an act of worship. So that's just a cool mindset. So when we do that on Sunday mornings, it's a moment of worship, not just a moment of transition. All right? So think about that as we practice giving in that way. Not only is it an act of worship, letter C, it's also an act of faith. When you think about it, once again, God owns it all. He trusts us as His managers. He gives to us. When we give it back to Him, it's an act of worship, but it's also being done in faith, right? Being that, God, you've given to me, I'm going to give back to you, trusting that you're going to provide more. I'm not guaranteed anything. I mean, yeah, I might have a salary. I might have this pay schedule or whatever, but God, I'm giving to you knowing that you're going to give back. I'm giving in faith. I'm trusting in you. Think about the poor widow in Mark chapter 12. Does somebody have that? Mark 12? Okay, would you read that for us, Carol?
Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowds dropped in their money. Many rich people put in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I tell you the truth, this poor widow has given more than all the others who are making contributions. For they gave a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on.
So that is a powerful moment that we see in Mark 12, when you got the rich and they're given all this and they're this large sums of money and they're drawing all this attention and everything, and then you got this little poor widow who's got 2 copper coins. She gives everything that she has. What is it? It's an act of faith. I don't have much, Lord, but I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to trust that you're going to provide more for me. You know, when she gave with the belief that God would provide. And that's what he says. He says in this specific portion of the book, he says that the greater our faith, I think I put it on your handout. Yeah, it's on the back. The greater our faith that God will provide for our needs, the greater will be our willingness to risk giving to him. And the less we trust God, the less we will want to give to him. I mean, that's kind of an in-your-face quote. When you think about it, as I'm fully trusting in God, when I fully trust him, I said, I'm going to give in faith, I'm displaying trust. Saying, God, I trust you. I mean, yeah, I might be the one to go out and have the job that you provided and give me the skills and give me the task, but I trust you. And if I'm clinging to what I have, I'm thinking that just communicates I don't trust you. I can do better with this than you can, so I don't trust you. Right? And so that giving, really, he says giving becomes a tangible indication of how much we believe God to provide for our needs. So it's done as an act of worship. It's done as an act of faith. Also, he says that our giving should be sacrificial and generous. Sacrificial and generous. 2 Corinthians 8, 1 through 5. Somebody got that one?
And now, brothers, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, even beyond their ability. Entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord, and then to us in keeping with God's will.
There you go. So this is the idea of being sacrificial, giving, being generous. This whole concept of just, and when we do that, it costs us, right? And it hurts sometimes. But God says, listen, if that's what I put on your heart, that's what you do. He says, I've never known anyone who gave sacrificially, whether through one-time sacrificial gift or consistent sacrificial offerings, who regretted it. Like when we give to the Lord, it doesn't come, sometimes you might feel that way, but in the moment, but like at the end of the day, you're like, man, I don't regret that. I was thinking about that this week, and it's not necessarily a monetary gift, but when we were in Haiti on a mission trip several years ago, my parents had just got me this G-Shock watch for Christmas, and it wasn't like one of the high-end G-Shocks, but still it was a nice watch. And I wore that to Haiti, which maybe that was a mistake, but I wore that there, and we're there for the week, and we're working and everything. Well, we were staying at an orphanage. We were staying at this orphanage and ministering there, but that was just kind of our hub. And so all these kids, we go out and work during the day, and we come home, and that night we have Bible study and hang out with the kids. And you have all these Haitian kids sitting all over you and singing songs, and there's a couple little kids I really, connected with. And this one little boy, he kept wanting my watch. He's like, Matt, let me get your watch. He's like, 8 years old. I'm like, dude, no. I'm like, no. Matt, let me get your watch. And he kept all week long. And so, man, I was like, I'm not giving you my watch, And so we get to the end of the week, and we're there, and they, like the little school area where they would come down for like their class, whatever. It was kind of weird. It kind of looked like almost like a jail. It had these bars on it, But the kids are all there, and they're behind there, and they're just in their classroom area, and we're like literally like leaving, right? And so we're like there, and he's like, Matt, let me get your watch. And I'm just like, he's persistent, man. So I just felt the Lord say, give him your watch. Just give him the watch. So I just took it off, and that kid, he went berserk. Like you thought, man, his whole life was just made in that moment from a little watch, And we had been in the village the day before, and we were, and we had heard about this kind of stuff where people would leave stuff behind, but we were there, and Megan and I actually both left our shoes to those people. So like we're walking around in flip-flops, and flip-flops are not my thing at all. I only took them for the shower there, but I was like, now we're wearing flip-flops home on the plane. I left my shoes. It just like, But I didn't look back and go, man, I regret that. And I got home and I told my dad, I said, yeah, I gave that little kid my G-Shock watch. My dad's like, what? We just bought you that watch, I'm like, well, hey, maybe it cost you more than it cost me. But it was just the point of like, you know what, man, that was a prompting. And I didn't regret it at the end of the day. I was like, man, that kid, who knows what happened to that watch. But you know what? It was the premise in that moment. It was sacrificial and it was just generous. It was just a generous moment. And that's not to pat me on the back. That's just to say, like, you don't regret that in that moment, right? So he says, the letter E, he says that giving should be done willingly, thankfully, and cheerfully. Let's see if we can write that. Willingly, thankfully, cheerfully. Yeah, I'm running out of room. I'll read this one. I got this one. 2 Corinthians 9:7. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. That word in the Greek, actually, that word cheerful, you know what that word translates to? What we use our word for? Anybody know? I may have heard that before. Hilariously. God loves a hilarious giver. So, by the way, remember, worship is giving is an act of worship. So when you put your offering in the place Sunday, don't just bust out in laughter. Now you're calling attention to yourself. It's not this hilarious laughter moment. It's a moment of just, in other words, your heart is full. Like your heart is so full, and you're cheerful in that moment. It's this cheerful attitude. And in the book, he says there are three kinds of giving. Three kinds of giving. There's grudge giving, which says I have to. There's duty giving, which says I ought to. It's just my duty. And he said, this is cool, he says, then there's thanksgiving. There's grudge giving, I have to. There's duty giving, I ought to. And then there's thanksgiving, I want to. And so he says, which one are you? Which category do you find yourself in? It should be done willingly, thankfully, and cheerfully, which leads us to our last blank this evening, is that generous giving, here's what it results in: bountiful blessing. That's right. It results in bountiful blessing, Don. That's exactly right. You can't outgive God, and that's what we're going to hit on Sunday for sure. But this is what it says, Luke 6:38. This is a cool verse. Think about this now. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And I don't know if you're like me when it comes to the trash can at your house. Like, I don't know if it's like just like the trash duty. I hate taking the trash out. It's just one of those things. I'm like, I feel like I take it out 14 times a day. I'm like, can we get a bigger trash can? Or let's stop being so trashy. One or the other, right? But I feel like that's all I do. Every time I turn around, the trash is overflowing. And so I go by the trash can and I'm like, you push it down. And you're stepping in it. And you're like, we got to make room here. And then you come home, and then the dog got in the trash, and then he's in trouble, the whole thing. But, you press it down, and you shake it down. You try to just keep stuffing. And he says, hey, give, and it will be given to you. Pressed down, shaken up, running over. With the measure that you use to give, it will be measured and given back to you. Now, once again, the danger here is the prosperity gospel mindset. If I give, I'm going to be healthy, wealthy, and prosperous, and all these kind of things. And I'm giving to God with this mindset that He's gonna give back to me. And we were trying to teach this to Charlie recently, and I think I've said this maybe already in this context or whatever. But like when she sold her rabbits for the fair last year, and we told her, she got that check, and she got that little check. We said, listen, now you need to give back to God, and we talk about that whole tithing principle. And she didn't bat an eye at it, but it was just one of those things where we practice what we're preaching, and we teach her that, and we show her that, and that whole thing. Then we got an insurance check back in the mail, and we told her, listen, honey, this is the principle. You cannot outgive God. When you give to Him, He's always going to bless you in return. I said, but we don't give to God to be blessed by Him, but when you do give, you are blessed. I said, it's a mindset. You don't give with the mindset of, I'm giving so He'll bless me. It's a mindset of, but when I do give, and I trust it to Him, because He's always asked me to do, and I'm giving cheerfully. When I give, I don't give to be blessed, but when I do give, I am blessed. And she's like, that doesn't make sense, Dad. I said, yes, it is. Yes, it does. Slow down. Think about it. You're not giving expecting Like, I'm going to give this, God, but I got my hand out. But I'm just going to give, God, and I'm going to see what you do. And when I give, I know that you take care of me. And so we're just trying to teach that principle. And you really, it's one of those things where you see it time and time again. So that's the prosperity. The prosperity says you give, and then you sit there and go, pour it out, God, I'm ready for it, healthy and wealthy. No, that's not the right mindset. Now, but God does say in the scriptures, when you give, I'll take care of you. When you give, I'll provide. And this is this whole principle. Yeah, you have to do some sowing, but when you do some sowing, you do some reaping. And so you understand that. So there's a couple of reflection questions, and these are just for you personally. But am I being disciplined in the use of my time? What would it look like if I began to practice that? Am I being disciplined in the use of my treasure? What would it look like if I began to practice that? And then just thinking, what would it look like as a church if we practiced both of these collectively? We're going to use our time to prepare for eternity. We're going to use it wisely, realizing all these things about it. It's short, it's fleeting, it's passing. And then we're going to use our treasure, realizing this is all God's. I'm going to give as an act of worship and faith. I'm going to be generous, sacrificial, trusting God. And when I do that, I'm going to be blessed in return. I love Adrian Rogers, the old pastor, Adrian Rogers. He said this, and I heard this recently, and I thought this was really good. I want to share it with you. He talked about the opportunity that we have on this side of eternity to be givers. And he says, part of it is that we get to give. We get to give back to God. And he started talking about, the idea of legacy giving out of your legacy. And this is the quote. I thought this was so cool. He says, do your giving while you're living, then you're knowing where it's going. And I thought that's pretty clever. I like that. Do your giving while you're living, then you're knowing where it's going. And so just that mindset of, man, when God gives us those things and he shows us how to be good stewards, we just are faithful and we trust him with it all. And so I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's one of those things that we need to be reminded of. And it's the heart check a lot of times. But I hope this is inspirational to you tonight and encouraging and maybe challenging, but either way, this is what the discipline of stewardship looks like.